Hi there and welcome to WhyBuy. This feature is the behind the scenes series where we'll be looking at video reviews that we've done and discuss some of the techniques, some tips and tricks that can maybe help you in your video production if you're new to the Director program. Also, if you're new to the channel, well, welcome, and let's jump straight into it. So in this episode, we'll be discussing the RS5 review. Let's take a look at the intro. Let's talk about Audi's B8.5 RS5. So this video is starring myself, and just freezing it here at 7 seconds, you'll see the plate. This is a very difficult thing to do in that I used the TV as a backdrop with footage rolling on it as I was doing the dialogue. Now the issue with this is that it is brutally complicated to control the lighting because you're going from something that is maybe very bright on the TV behind you to very dark, and the whole purpose of doing this is that I knew it was going to be a very long review, and I wanted something visually stimulating in the background to keep the viewer's interest. The issue with that is, like I said, it's very hard to control lighting, and more importantly, if you're doing cuts and dialogue, it might be very apparent when you try and blend different takes that happened at different times because the image on the TV is constantly changing. So I don't advise doing this. Typically, what we would like to do is have the actual vehicle as the dialogue is taking place, but this would be a one-off instance. So I'm just going to pause it right there at 17 seconds. I really like this shot because it's actually a drone that was pre-programmed to fly around the car. So it almost looks like a crane shot because of how close it is to the subject. But in fact, what I did was I set it on a predetermined path to kind of pull across the hood, and then I acted out the sequence of walking towards the car. I'm just going to pause it right there. That shot right there at 22 seconds where the car rips right in front of the camera. So B-roll is so important to telling a visual story. The cinematic value of your B-roll is largely going to come down to the lighting, how you plate your shot, but really sound is so critical. And the way we got that shot was we actually had a chase car. We had the vehicles going in opposite directions. So when you have that, the sense of movement is increased. So I was really happy with how that turned out. And more importantly, the sound was just, it just created this really interesting kind of sonic booming sound effect, which I was very pleased with. I'm just gonna pause it right there at 28 seconds. So it was very well thought out in advance that we would be shooting this during sunset. So in the later portion of the day when the sun was getting low and the sky starts to turn orange and you get this warmer lighting, better shadows being cast. We had a bit of cloud cover, so really ideal settings for doing something like this, which I understand is going to be very hard to control because the scheduling isn't always perfect. But if you can time your shots where the lighting is ideal outdoors, I highly recommend that you do, because the final product is just, it looks so much better. It looks like the exact same shot where I was discussing earlier, that kind of the cars coming across each other like that. We actually did that take twice, and I regret it now because I included both in this introductory montage sequence, and even though they're different takes, they look identical. So it just looks like we repeated the same B-roll shot. And if you can avoid it, yeah, don't use the same B-roll twice in a row like that. trying to convey the emotion, you might not always have the best understanding of, what customers or viewers actually know and feel and want out of a product. So what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to show visually the sensation of, starting the car, getting into it, kind of that hands up the steering wheel as the spoiler in the back's rising. These are things that, can maybe help the audience. What is the sensation of sitting down and driving this thing? Ask the customer, what is the process like for you? Describe to me what it's like grabbing your keys, going to the car, getting in the car. Like, how does that feel to you? And then try to visually represent it. It's easy for me because this is my own personal vehicle and I already know this. But if you're kind of lost in terms of, what you're going to be filming, just have a good discussion with the customer of, what do you feel and what do you do when you experience these things or use the product. So right there was a shot where someone waved at 1 minute, 9 seconds. And I always like including those kind of happy accidents. They happen all the time when you're doing these sort of shoots where something will occur, or in this case, some stranger who's actually taking photos of his own vehicle sees this vehicle coming along and he just gives the wave. Try and include those sort of things because that kind of spontaneous, unplanned, B-roll, it just happens, and it kind of adds that sense of authenticity to the fact that this is, real, happening now. It gives context to that. So when you think about a dream car, everyone has their reasons for why that is, but to me it was, I wanted something attainable. I don't like using Ken Burns and using static photographs to help convey emotion in a video. The reason is you see it here is we're really kind of stuck for B-roll footage, showing this vehicle, this RS4, which we didn't have accessible, just to show the audience what it is that we're talking about. I think photos tend to take the audience out of the video, and it dilutes the entertainment value of the video that they're watching. So if you can avoid it, avoid it. If you're gonna be using photographs and panning effects like Ken Burns or something on them in your videos, just let us know beforehand. It's something that we like to just have an idea of, how it's going to be utilized, what is the photograph, because it really is just it's a gamble of whether or not it's going to be useful. You'd be turning your head wondering, what the heck was that? Practically speaking, the B7 RS4, you'll see that this is cell phone footage that was taken in a vertical orientation, or 9:16. The issue with this is that you have these two black panels on the side of the frame, and we produce everything in 16:9 aspect ratio. So again, takes the audience out of it. It's not as visually appealing. The only reason it's included here is because it's relevant to the buying story. So it's, again, lending that authenticity and, kind of showing viewers, something that doesn't have to be so polished and professionally filmed. It's like, this was a moment in time and here's a brief clip of that. Similar to, again, using photos for contextual relevance. That's what I really wanted. I didn't care. It got to the point where I was having such a hard time finding a B7 RS4. I said, you know what? I'm just gonna try and find an RS5 because they didn't ship the B8.5 RS4s to. This buying story is incredibly long. When you're shooting your product reviews, there's a pretty good chance it's gonna be way shorter. The average video we publish is 5-10 minutes in length. This was just a personal project that I took a lot of time with, but the point of this is that you might, on the day of filming, get a buying story that is this long-winded. You might get something that is so rich in information, you're gonna have to make, kind of the decision of what to cut. And what I typically do is, I wanna capture the full story. Do your preparation, you plan out what you're gonna talk about, but sometimes it helps to dig deeper and help the customer explain themselves and tell the full story, even if it goes on for 10, 15, 20 minutes. The point of that is that you can always go back in post-production and isolate the key sections that stood out from that. And even though this video is 40 minutes in length, the actual dialogue and raw footage that we have is closer to about an hour and a half. So it's cutting down, trimming the fat on a lot of that and just kind of isolating the key points. So again, when you're filming on location, take advantage of the fact that someone is there willing to tell their buying story. They've made the effort. Just capture as much as you possibly can. You don't know what's going to come in handy later in post-production.
The engine is by far the highlight and best thing about this car.
We combine a lot of the times cell phone footage, GoPro footage, kind of these, whatever we can to help tell the story. You don't have to have the best footage possible. Now, what we encourage our directors to do is, the bulk of your video should be shot with your expert cinematography. But there might be sequences that you cannot film just due to limitations like location and time. So, for instance, this video that's filmed with a cell phone was done 4 months prior to this actual dialogue day of filming for the production. So instead of just ignoring or scrapping this footage of driving on the road in the mountains, which the location specific is visually appealing, we included it because it's the customer's experience. It's a moment in time that is significant and it helps tell the story. So, try and work with, even if the footage isn't as high of quality, it can still, for reference purposes, be shown for 3, 5, 10 seconds to give more context to the story. As fast as you can pull through the gears, here we set up a mirrorless camera in the rear passenger seat to give that, better quality experience for the viewer. And this is what I mean by combining efforts where, maybe there's some footage that isn't 100% fantastic, but you can always supplement that with your own work, again, just to help balance it out. And when I say balance, it should be your work consisting of, 90% of the video with, if there's any supplemental footage provided by the customer, well, you can include those in about 10% of the video. The carbon fiber in the interior, on the doors, on the center console, which the work is fantastic. It looks so good. The other thing that's optional, I think, is the 20-inch matte black 5-rotor. A lot of this footage was filmed actually on a gimbal with a remote operated head that could pan and tilt to get that smooth movement. Now you might have a slider or something to help give you those steady shots, but keep in mind, if you shoot at 60 frames a second, you can always slow it down 40% to give you that 24 frames a second speed, so that kind of slow-mo if you have to do something handheld. And I'm trying to think of an example here of where I did that. But in short is, if you're in a pinch and you need to film something handheld, maybe you're on the ground, maybe you're on a ladder shooting down and it's a really cumbersome camera position, yeah, shooting at a higher frame rate or, slowing it down in post might just give you that few seconds of that smooth shot that you need. And you get these more aggressive shifts, more aggressive downshifts and upshifts. Individual lets you configure. Again, B-roll is so important to tell the visual story of what the dialogue is going through. Now, in this instance, I'm sitting in a static location with a static plate, and I'm just discussing my experience, cutting to B-roll to help illustrate my point. But you might also, if you have the opportunity, the customer might be able to interact with these things as you film them. So maybe they're talking about something specific as they're interacting with it, and that's just one take. You don't have to jump cut back and forth. My advice is to always, if you can, do a dedicated dialogue take, because if you need to trim the fat of certain dialogues, ums, buts, ors, that's, it's kind of just like dragging on too long, you can always disguise it with B-roll as supplemental footage to get the time down and keep the pacing up. And I was looking online as to what kind of options there are for the RS5, and I think what's really cool is that most people were just doing resonator deletes. Now, okay, so here's a good instance where I knew that the date that this would be happening, it would be great footage to have the process of it being done. So there might be instances where you think of a great shot that would add to your video product review. Ask the managers, the owners of the facility if it's okay to bring in a camera and film this sort of thing. And again, we just want to be respectful of the people that we're interacting with. So don't go in there and just start filming a bunch of stuff without asking permission. People don't really like that as a business. Just be mindful and respectful. And, oftentimes you'll find that people are very accommodating, and you can get great shots behind the scenes like this of work being done. So yeah, that pretty much sums it up for the RS5 review. Now, probably a lot of questions and things that we're leaving kind of left unanswered, but we're active with our community, so leave a comment, send us a message. We want to ensure that you have the resources you need to make great work, but more than anything, we want to encourage people to express themselves, give it their unique style, and just be here to support and ensure that the viewers get the best possible product video reviews. That engine sounds so good. Modification. Performance. Man, this is a long video.